Welcome to EIPIP Meeting 69. We have agenda and chat. So we have listed a few items to discuss, which are coming from issues and pull request. Pull request in which we can make some decision and move forward with the decision in terms of merging or not merging. And then we will have a few other issues related to bot may be discussed. So maybe we can start with the first item here, that is update EIP 721. The pull request number here is 5887. So this particular item was also discussed yesterday in the EIP editing office hour. It is created by Panda Peep, one of the editors, and I believe Sam Wilson also left some comments. We were hoping to get more comments and feedback to move forward with this. I believe that's what the last comment Sam left on this pull request. Wondering if anyone have any thoughts to add here.
I generally think that the history on EIP 721, including what was adopted, what was prior art, were very useful and being left as a record how that EIP was incorporated and finalized. Removing links, if that's what is being talked about, I felt reduces the value of the original documents.
Okay.
Sorry, this is about use latest solidity and remove.
That's
I
right.
kind of want to kind of prefer keeping it as is, because you can't, like, we can have a newer version, but I kind of feel that the EIP itself was not meant to be updated over time. We don't do that for EIP 220, and I don't know if that is higher value to do it for EIP 721. So that would be my perspective, just to avoid touching it if it's finalized and has been widely adopted. Even though I had, like, for another EIP 712, I have a lot of complaints about how it's written, but now that it's finalized, I wouldn't challenge it much. Um, that would be my position. Yeah, looking forward to other EFS, to other people's thoughts.
Right. Yeah, lately we have been receiving a lot of edits for final EIPs. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes later on with someone. However, yeah, if any other people have any thoughts, we are currently discussing pull request number 5887. I have shared link here in the chat.
I'm relatively against updating the CIP.
I'm mostly indifferent, but lean towards not updating it.
Okay. So I think one author has proposed, one editor has proposed it, and we can hear two voices in against. And I think Victor is also not very much in favor of changing. So maybe we can leave that as a comment over here. And yeah, if Panapip has further arguments, we can have it in the next meeting.
I feel like we should just close it. Like, I think we have a lot of people who have already said that don't necessarily think the change is best. And there's no reason he can't reopen if he wants to, but I would rather, like, our default be more towards action rather than inaction, because we tend to just, like, reiterate over arguments many times before something happens. And so if we, whenever there's strong consensus, just enact the consensus, I think we'll spend less time reiterating debates.
I would love that. I was worried a couple of days ago by looking into the pull request number of open pull request number, but lately we have been botted and the number exploded. So yes, as much as we can close pull request, that will provide us clarity.
Very much agreed.
Thank you. So that's about it. The next item here is a EIP status change. So this is a question that we are receiving generally in EIP editor's office hour and on many other forums like new EIP authors are generally confused about how and when we should move, though we try to put more information on EIP 1. However, there is one special case that came into light yesterday. It was about EIP 3651, which is a core proposal. The general understanding is for core proposal, we do not exactly follow the process of standardization, though we have the similar nuances, except for we try to sync it with the mainnet upgrade because that is supposed to be updated via network upgrade. So yeah, if any editor would like to reiterate on the process about the status change just for clarity. And I was wondering if we can have this special case mentioned in EIP 1 as well. Like I have added the blog post that was published by Cat Herders over a year ago, in which we mentioned that a core proposal should be moved into last call during the public testnet period, like when it is into the mainnet phase. But that I believe is not clearly mentioned in EIP 1. So yeah, any thoughts and yeah.
I don't think it's necessary to really document too much. Like, we're talking on the order of 5 to 8 EIPs a year that go through this, and most of the authors of those EIPs know. And we just had an instance of the author of 3651 Warm Coinbase try and move his last call, and I just mentioned, hey, we usually only move these last call whenever the test nets are happening, just in case there were some that needed to be changed. And he was fine with that, closed the PR. So I don't think it's something that's necessary to really document beyond that.
Just to add on there, I mean, I'm really grateful that you left that comment. Just to add on there, this pull request was a reaction to an action that was performed by bot. So the author reached out to me saying that I really do not know when to move to a different status. And my EIP is getting this bot comment that it will be still. And he then went ahead and created this pull request to change the status. Though I mentioned it to him that this is a special case of core EIP, and you should be expecting something from EIP editors. Thanks to Matt, you did mention the same thing, so it made it very clear to him. If we are open for taking it case by case basis, I'm fine by that because, as you said, that we do not have a big number of core EIPs getting into status change from last call to final or review to last call. So I'm fine. I just wanted to share here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I also mentioned there's wording in EIP 1, not much, but briefly talk about the core EIP has different requirements that requires implementations to be considered final. So I think that level of validity is enough. I agree. We don't need to add more, but I think that any new, even if it's a new EIP author, by reading EIP 1, they should understand that this is a requirement for core EIPs already documented in EIP 1. I put a note. I put it in the notes the exact wording in current EIP version 1, the current EIP version.
Yeah. Okay. And one other point that I wanted to mention related to this status change only. I understand we generally do not have any fixed duration mentioned anywhere except for the last call duration, where we specify that the proposal should be there for at least 14 days. Um, while looking into the EIPS insight for the month of November, it came to my attention that there are a few proposals which moved fast. Moving fast is not a bad thing. I just want to highlight that it was observed that there were a few proposals which were into draft status and is in final status in less than 2 months. For some reason, my feeling is like less than 2 months could be relatively faster, and we may not be providing enough time for community to learn about the proposal and add valuable feedback so that we do not have iterations of changes post it is finalized. Like when a proposal is done, we want to keep it done, no more changes there. Wonder if there are any thoughts.
The ones that I remember going to final very quickly were like single method EIPs. Were there more complicated ones that went through quickly, or?
I can list the number I have it. It's 573256795750. So these are like the proposal that started somewhere in September, and they are in the 5750 is not on final. It started on October 15 and it is in last call, which is ending November 19. So if the author chooses to make a pull request to merge it as final, it will be less than 2 months. Actually, within a month, it would be. And similarly for 5679, it started on September 19 and on November 10th, it went into the final status. So I feel like it is relatively faster. So if there is any recommendation to keep proposal in review for about a month or so, if there is no rush, like if there is no particularly need to move it faster than that.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't see a problem with it.
I mean, I feel like a way of making that happen, most likely. I mean, it's not. I feel like the longer time in review is a trailing indicator of what we really want. What we really want is we want to know that people are reviewing or people are happy with the standard. And so I think like if we make that the criteria more than just time, because having some time limit to me doesn't necessarily mean whether or not someone's actually looked at it. And we've talked about this in the past. I think that if we just made this requirements for, especially ERCs a little bit more stringent, like we have this requirement that says before you open a draft, you need to like have to discuss this with the community and it has to, have some sort of support from the community. So if we had that as like part of the draft stage, like move to review or move from review to last call, you need to like show like 3 independent people who have shared thoughts and are approving of this change. And like I don't really know the best way to like encode that within the EAP process, but I think having something like that where we put the work onto the community rather than having some arbitrary time limit could be a lot more valuable.
Yeah, I agree with like Ryan that maybe adding arbitrary time period is not the best way. I kind of in favor of particular way to kind of based on the community interest. So one thing that I have been thinking of is that for like I authored a lot of EICs. I think ERC should generally also apply similar standard to get final. For example, like how about having multiple, at least two of the independent implementations to get final. I think it's okay to have something be on draft and on review and on last call. But I kind of generally feel that there's an explosion of ERCs, and some of them were kind of really repetitive and hard to prove or debate the worthiness of them. And showing that there's adoptions or showing there's implementations, just like core, could help on one side really stop the further iterations of the specification, right? If you already have adoptions, it's hard for you to any actually make formative change. but also for clients is that their time and energy invested into building and implementations shows that it's not just support, right? You can easily buy support by kind of, hey, on forum I support this, but having adoptions shows much better. It's much harder, and then I kind of want to run this by the editors for your thoughts in making uh, adoptions as a kind of what it needs for EIC to be final. And I think it can generally apply to any standard track EICs, standard track EIPs.
One thing I remember discussing with few EIP authors actually of ERC category, like having a prototype, even if not full implementation, is ready for a proposal to be a standard. That could be a good place where we can realize, okay, this is being implemented, and here's the prototype. Maybe it can be moved towards a standard. If that is something you should consider.
No, I don't think the prototype is sufficient. Actually, working and deployed smart contract or actually live clients, I think should be kind of. I'm kind of more leaning towards that level of clarity because you can easily create some prototype that doesn't get tested, doesn't get like I. I'm not sure if editors or people who contribute editorially would be able to test just by looking into um, just by looking into an asset file for Solidity, and then it takes a lot of other things for the reference presentation to be kind of you actually testable. And so seeing a real deployment and a real life one is much stronger, much solid, much more solid as a proof of this is being adopted and functioning well. That would be my thought. Yeah.
I'm not sure we want adoption as a criteria for publishing an EIP as final. I worry that that would kind of stop people who may not be technically minded or as technically minded from writing an EIP, and I think the process should be open to as many people as possible. That said, I think maybe the approach that I'd prefer is actually having a like resource list that we can send to authors and say like, oh, you're writing a soulbound token NFT. Here are 10 people who deal with soulbound token NFTs who you should talk to about your EIP. And I think that like that and then some kind of ensuring that we have a reasonable amount of discussion on the discussion thread would be sufficient. I just think that an actual implementation or even a reference implementation is making it like too onerous for EIP authors.
That's a fair point. Maybe, obviously, we can leave it at the discretion of editors, like when they would like to move, but having a fair discussion to thread and some implementation could be right set of information that we can pass along to new authors when they're preparing to move their proposal into different status.
So Sam, if I hear you correctly, you're referring to like you don't think you want to require it. Like, how about we said like it's recommended? I heard you, and then I totally agree with you that we need to let as many people contribute to the idea as possible, and that's one of the reasons I really want to be flexible on links. I do feel that there's some way to show strong community support. If there's any way to show strong community support, adoption would be a good one. If we can say, hey, how about other can be adopted, can be seen as community support. But if you happen to also have multiple implementations, that's definitely that's definitely helpful. So make it an optional suggestions. would you be open to that type of,
I think that's where we are today, right? So yeah, I think
I
we're good with
don't
that.
think we mentioned that. Yeah, I think that you can put reference implementation, but we don't say it's recommended to be live. It's recommended to even under some reference policy that you were advocating, if I understand it correctly, people should actually remove the mention of adoptions. Yeah, I think we can put that into context when we talk about 1191. I put an agenda, and I think that can be tested. Policy discussion can be tested in real EIP reviewing. Uh,
Right, and I think that is the next item listed here about EIP 1191. Um, Victor, I believe this was added by you. If you would like to provide some context here.
Yeah, so this EIP 1191 has been moved to last call since I think 2019. It states there with minimum change or minimum nomadic change. And there's a big list of adoption table, which makes me feel um, would not be much change in the future as well. But staying in last call for multiple years, I think undermines our sense as a community for what last call means. So I kind of pose this question to editors: should we move it to final or should we move to stagnant? I lean towards moving to final, but there's a strong push from either Stat.js author, Richard more. Um, so kind of like to get a gauge of editors' thoughts about should we like what direction should we go here and what the policy thinking process is.
I think it's like our policy is that if an author wants to open a PR and push it through, they can. Otherwise, we don't touch it, right?
So just to add some more context here, this proposal was also under discussion about 6 months ago, and that point also we were stuck at the place where author uh, where the EtherJS author requested some changes, and the proposal author is not willing to maybe comply with that, or is there only. So the other option is if author wants to maybe withdraw the proposal, or someone else wants to come up with a competitive proposal with whatever changes they are suggesting, like I believe it is a note on backward compatibility. So if they would do, either of the proposal will be moved forward, otherwise bot will definitely move it into stagnant status if nothing happens there for a longer time.
I do know that if untouched for 6 months, bot will do that. I think my question is, given the current status that some of the community has adopted, some of the community lean towards rejecting it and citing backward compatibility, if author wants, are they allowed to move this to final, given this current status? Hmm. So, sorry, am I?
Oh, no, I think we can hear you. Yes. I think we will defer there on EAP editors decision, and it looks like the decision is if there is no pull request by the author, yeah, to move it to the final. And unless all the issues mentioned in the discussion thread are addressed, it should not be moved into the final. Is if I'm reading correct.
Well, I don't think we'll stop it from moving to final. If the author wants to move it to final, but like there are a lot of concerns, and either like somebody should open an EIP that addresses them at some point. But yeah.
I am not sure if this is the resolution we were hoping to get for this particular item, Victor, but yeah, if you have anything more to add or yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I lean towards that author are allowed to move it to final. I do also agree that if they can also resolve any community concerns, that would be even better. But my stance, my personal opinion here is that once they get larger number of adoptions, that EIP is powerful enough to that EIP generates powerful enough community consensus, and it should be warranted to finalize.
Yep, I think at this point we are leaving it to the author. If the author is willing to maybe make a pull request, and then we can bring it back to discussion or see where we are at that time. If pull request and the proposal is supported by more adoption, probably there would be cases of getting it merged to final. All right, moving ahead, thank you. Moving ahead, we have item number 2, which is discussion continued from earlier meeting. First one is EIP 1, clarify when to use request. I think we discussed this, and Sam Wilson opened a pull request for that. So I believe this is to decide on merging. The pull request number is 5614. Any thoughts, comments, or maybe decision?
I mean, if it hasn't been merged at this point, I'm okay with just closing this. I mean, we have 2 approvals and Victor as well. I don't think anybody's opposed. I'll merge it unless somebody objects right now.
I think it has received a fair approval here.
Cool.
We received comment from Greg also, but it does not seems to be in negative direction, so it should be fine.
Yeah, okay. I'll just merge this then.
And the other one also, we have already discussed this, and I believe the EIPW bot has also been updated according to it. The pull request number is 5273. Matt, I believe this issue was brought up by you. You have to add anything? I mean, since we were in agreement, like the majority were in agreement. I am still against it, but majority were in agreement. So yeah, let's go ahead with that.
Yeah, I just want to press the green button, and so I was gonna make sure that that was okay.
I'm still against merging it.
But I can press the green button.
I mean, you have that privilege on GitHub, yes.
Good thing I don't have any privilege on that side.
I mean,
So right now, basically, Panda, Pip, and I are the only people who are pro.
You and Sam.
I think Sam also, yes.
No,
Wait,
I'm
no,
saying
I'm-
Panda, Pip, and I are pro. Sam is against.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
But Panda Pip is like marginally pro.
I guess the question is whether Sam are against it to the level that Sam wanted to block it, or Sam is just weakly.
Oh no, I keep saying I'm opposed because I like, no offense to you guys, I think it's a dumb idea, and I don't think we should do this.
The problem is that this is already the way that everybody does it, and we're just confused. Like every week I see another person ask why. Why is this the case? And this week it's the guy who's working on the warm Coinbase. He says, I'm trying to move my EIP to last call. Why is it getting mad at me for saying I have to refer to ERC 20 as EIP 20? Like I'm really tired of seeing all these authors confused and the community getting confused.
If we flip it, we're going to have authors confused the other way.
We won't. We will not. All the authors understand that we refer to ERCs as ERCs.
I would like to add a
I've
point
never
here.
one time seen an author confused by why do I have to call this an ERC? Every author understands this. But I consistently
because we've never had a rule that enforces calling an ERC. Like there's never been a place where an author would be confused by that. Like when we add the EIPW implementation that forces ERC, then we're going to start to see authors confused the other way.
I'm almost certain we won't, because I've almost never seen an ERC referred to as EIP in the like broader context of EIPs. Anytime you see an ERC discussed on another forum or thread, it's always ERC, except for this more recent time where EIPW has been enforcing EIP.
I witnessed the same. Speaking of as a ERC author.
I would like to add a small point here. People who are referring ERC as ERC, they are generally people who are here in the ecosystem for a very long time, and that time ERC was having a special case. Like, okay, they were not considered to be, I don't know, people did not even consider it to be a part of EIP standardization, but we spent a decent amount of time in making this thing. And the good news that I want to share here is new authors who are documenting EIP of ERC category, they generally do not have this kind of hesitation and they have a better understanding. Like if we want to document an EIP and ERC category, it has to follow the EIP standardization process because it is a standard track EIP of ERC category. So that is there with older authors, but obviously we do not want to lose them. They have been a great contributor.
It's not just with the older authors, though. I mean, it's with all of the ERC EAPs up until 4000. Like, we're not going to get away from this. There's too many ERC references out there. We can't just change it in the middle of flight now. Even if you're a new, ERC author coming in and you're like naming your things EIP, you still have to like live in this world where all the implementation is called ERC 20, all of the references called ERC 21, 721. Like no one is calling these things EIP 721.
I kind of want to see if I agree with Matt, and I kind of want to test with you whether we agree on one principle that we lean towards call things that is being adopted. Is that a principle that we can that we agree on, or we disagree on this proposed principle?
I didn't catch what the principle was.
The principle is that we call EIC or EIP based on what people call it. That if we don't care what outside people call about it, then like Matt and I, we agree on we want to call EIC, but if we don't agree on that principle at all, then we don't make a case. But if in this venue everyone agrees that we should call EIC or EIP based on what people call them, then the next debate is what do people call them. I think we already jumped into the next debate, but I just want to test out whether the first one is actually the principle is actually agreed upon by the group.
I mean, if we had a time machine to go back 6 or 7 years and we could avoid this scenario where we're calling something ERCs, something EIPs, that would probably be great. But we don't, and we have to live in the world that we do. And I don't think that we should be trying to erase the history of.
I mean, how like to borrow one of Micah's old arguments, how long do you expect Ethereum to last?
what I think, just like internet.
So the small amount of time that we called them ERCs versus EIPs is insignificant, and they're very, very long term. So we should probably try to correct the naming now while we're still early.
That sounds convincing.
Like it's pretty marginal to me. See, but the fact is the community calls it ERC, and there's just no
The
need to go
community
through that
also
pain.
types their seed phrases when they own Bored Apes into random websites. Like we can't use the community as an indicator of quality decisions.
Yeah, but we also shouldn't just like pick invasive policy just because we think it's like marginally better. Like if there was, you know, substantial improvement of calling it like this, like the naming change of ETH2 to the consensus layer and stuff, I felt like was a big and important change, and it's a good thing that we did it. But forcing people to call it EIPs rather than ERCs, that's like much less necessary.
Yeah, I mean the benefits are mostly just for consistency, like internally within the EIP repository, right? Like we don't name the files ERC20. We don't do any of that stuff.
I mean, I think that we could do better about creating consistency in the EIP repository by naming it ERCs and like working towards that. But right now we're just like upsetting people. Everyone.
Okay. So, like, the consensus or the execution specs are coming along, and they're going to be a thing. That might be the best time to revisit this discussion because we're going to be changing everything anyways. So if we do it all at once and we fix the naming, we pick whatever system we want, because that, like, once we have the execution layer specifications, then there's a very clear difference between an ERC and an EIP, and I'm totally fine at that point calling them ERCs.
I thought that today is still very clear distinction between them, right?
I mean, we follow the same process for both of them, so they're not really that distinct. The only difference is whether you cite one as EIP or as ERC.
The route to finalize is different as well, right? Like you need adoptions from the core.
Are you on wireless headphones?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like losing connection a little bit.
Oh, is that you? I thought that was Victor. What if you talk for a second?
Hello?
I also have a crappy, my AirPod just degraded very badly. Let me use another microphone.
It's not important. It's just every once in a while, like, we get a burst of static from someone's mic.
Victor. I think mine is just like having trouble connecting to the internet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so not a huge deal. It's just wanted to mention it.
Sorry, I missed the last 30 seconds of what you were saying there, unfortunately. Oh, come on.
No, nobody said anything. It wasn't you.
Okay, just to respond to one comment from Victor. Victor, generally speaking, the process of the standardization is not very different. We are also looking for implementation for even core proposal, though this implementation is going via a client team. And similarly, the expectation is with the ERC also, there should be some kind of implementation or adoption there. So maybe like in real life, there could be a little bit of difference. The process of a standardization remains the same. And that is not only for this ERC category, that is for any other standard track EIP.
I just don't like this thing where we as editors like make decisions about things and then the community says they don't like that and then we just do it anyways. Like it just feels it's doesn't feel like we're working with the community to build a system that's good together.
I feel very much the same. I lean towards using adoptions as a indicator in many places, and then this is one that because the community has adopted the ERC names, and it's going to be even known better in the future. I felt that at least we should consider that a factor into our decisions.
I mean, I would love to just move ERCs farther and farther away from EIPs, and honestly, I am like getting tired of waiting. Like, I don't know when that's gonna happen, but I would love to do it more. But I think that like we're just seeing over and over again that people are confused with this. We have ERCs in the wild, and now we're like, telling them in an automated way that that's wrong.
All right, I will get. I will, withdraw my block. But let's have a discussion on Discord about it, and let's get everybody except Axic to weigh in on it, because I think even Greg might have an opinion on it. And then, as long as if I'm the only one that's holding up the process, then we'll make the change.
Okay.
Thank you, Sam, for being reminded.
That sounds amazing, but I have
Robotic. Sorry, Victor, if you were trying to say something, your voice went robotic. We could not catch what you said.
I said thanks, Sam, for being reminded.
Yeah, it's no better. So maybe you can type it. So I will ultimately defer it to live client. Do we really want to press the green button right here or continue discussing on Discord
Well,
and
Sam
whatever is
wants-
decided?
Let's discuss on Discord.
Okay.
Sam wants to hear everyone's opinion.
I just don't like if I'm the only one against it. I don't want to be the person blocking it, but I also want to make sure that everybody else has a say.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
I think the voice of editors count here, and that's why my voice is not counting here. But yeah, I'm also against of it. And one point I also want to mention here. Sorry for coming back on this topic again and again, Matt. But here's the thing: like when we decide something for core proposals, there is a lot of things that is coming up for a community, but I believe that as a client developers and people who are in the all core dev meeting, they take this responsibility, they own this responsibility to communicate it to the community, like what is the right thing to do, just like you mentioned about in the case of EAT2. Similarly, on the ERC side, if the EIP editors are trying to make a decision on that, I think it is on them to own this responsibility of communicating the right thing to the community. So I don't think we should be feeling bad about making decisions in EIPIP meeting. This is open. People can join and share their thoughts. Yeah, but let's continue discussing this in the Discord side. All right. The next one is EIP bot. I believe this is an issue created by Matt for stale review dismissal loop. If someone would like to provide an overview of the issue and where we are at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just on a crusade to not have the bot post a bunch of meaningless comments on the EIP thread, because there's nothing worse than opening an EIP thread and there's like 30, 40 comments, but they're all just like opening and closing the PRs, stale reviews, bugs in the bot, whatever. And this seems to be a new one. PandaPip says that this is just due to GitHub. I don't know, maybe it's true. It's just annoying to like, I don't know why or how it happens, but for some reason, like you leave a review and the bot will just dismiss it sometime. Or if someone else leaves a review, they'll just dismiss your review. And it doesn't look very nice on the GitHub. But Canada's not here, so I don't think there's really anything to discuss on it unless Sam understands the situation.
My knowledge ends at the command line interface for EIPW, so I'm sorry.
I wonder, Jose, if you have any thoughts on that. I'm not sure if you are completely familiar with the code which is working behind the scene here, but since you have been looking into the repository, if you may have any thoughts or if you would be willing to maybe look into this issue.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, I think that we can set a kind of filter. I will take a look on it. I don't think that we can avoid it, but I think that we can avoid the posting, which I believe what is annoying is all that list and action of style review, dismiss, and whatever. So I'm gonna take a look. I feel positive that we can set the kind of filter on that action.
Sounds good. So maybe you can update it on the issue created by Matt here. 5868 is the issue number. So if you have any finding, you can probably add here. That would be good. Any other thing on EIP bot side that you would like to share or mention today?
Indeed, I choose 3 more issues to collaborate. I'm gonna share in the repo so the editors can confirm if they are working on it on them or not. I mean, just that.
Very well. Thank you for that. The next one here is EIPS Insight for the month of November. I have not added the formal HackMD over here, but I was trying to collect the information with the new EIPSinsight.com website that we are working towards it. And we do have a tab of the latest month there. From that report, I can say that we have 6 proposals which reached to final status in the month of November. Those proposals are EIP 5732, 5679, 5528, 5375, 2612, 5484. So it's kind of good progress that we have so many proposals moving into final. That means they are not waiting in the pull request form for a longer period to be moved forward. We do have received 8 drafts, and there are 4 proposals in review status. There are 3 proposals in last call. One is 5750 general extensibility for methods behavior, 4519 non-fungible token tied to physical asset, and the last one is 5757, that is process for approving external resources. So Matt, I was wondering, like, we have this proposal in last call. Do we want to move it to final, or do we want to leave it with the status of living? What is the next step here?
I would like to move it to final.
Which one's it for?
The process for approving external resources. So we want to have it as a final, not a living.
Yeah, I think it's final.
Okay,
Yep.
fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, these are the 3 proposals on last call. So people, if you have thoughts, comments, come forward and share it either on the discussion to thread or on the respective pull request. Better on discussion to thread. We don't want to create any confusion. Okay, that's all on EIPS Insight. The next item here is EIP Editing Office Hour. Yesterday we had Editing Office Hour meeting number 6. Recording is updated on Ethereum Cat Herders YouTube. And this has been going great. I have been receiving a lot of positive feedbacks. Thanks, Samuelson, for having this meeting. It has helped a lot of new authors to understand how they can move forward. And people, if you have any questions or any pull requests and anything that you would like to check with editors, I believe this is the best meeting where you can have one-to-one interaction. So yeah. Agenda for meeting number 7 is already added. You can also leave your pull request number in the agenda so we can include it in the next meeting's discussion. That's all, I think. And now we are at the last item, which is a review action item from the earlier meeting. Okay, so there is one action item for Sam. I think he already have worked towards it. It is related to EIP 5757, which is now in the last call. So that is taken care of. And we have revisited issues which were pending from the last discussion. I think that's all from the items added to the agenda for today's discussion. We have approximately 5 to 7 minutes. If anyone has anything to share, discuss, yeah, please.
I think the only other one then that we should discuss is 5874. So that's 5874. That's the two external origins. I think we just need to come up with I think I just need to come up with a way to add the JSON to a footnote. If anybody has any suggestions on how to do that, please add it to that PR, and then as long as nobody objects, we can merge it.
Same. I wonder. It seems like these JSONs are very highly structural. I wonder if it's better to be in a separate file as structural, or is that intended?
Like you'd have a citations file or something in your assets directory.
Oh, not necessarily. I thought that the CSL-JSON file was meant to be used in the EIPW as a way to allow citation.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
And in that way, I'm kind of think that running like I don't have a strong preference, but I felt in Markdown, it's very hard to test whether a structural data is legit and has been validated. So I wonder what's your thought on making that separate file, like something.json.
Like from the validation point of view, it's not a problem. Like EIPW, you can just grab that block and validate it. But from like a human readable perspective, I can definitely understand wanting to put it into another file. But that would require more work on the Jekyll side to get it to render correctly. But maybe that's worth it. I don't know. Because like what I have, like, so the concern PandaPip has here is that the indented code block that I'm using doesn't render correctly in Common Mark. So that's a problem. So I have to just figure out. Yeah, putting it in a different file is probably a reasonable solution. I hadn't really even thought of that.
Cool.
Okay, so if this is resolved before the next meeting, it's fine. I mean, if it is merged or not. So if we want to bring it up in the next meeting, considering it is still open, we can probably add it to the agenda there.
Okay.
And I also mentioned that I want to propose a few other things into this into our first accepted external origins, such as Ethereum/Dev P2P. Do you have a thought on to adding those? Like I'm hoping this is probably the easiest time to get origins in. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think just because I didn't separate my PR into like two parts, like one about the rules text and one to add the actual origins. So if you could make a PR after this one gets merged, I'd appreciate it. But if you also want to make one before and just copy the same like introduction text, that'd be fine.
I love to. I don't know where to put that particular file. So yeah, once you either merge this one or you create a separate PR, I'm going to add the or the list I want to be allowed listed to begin with.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Good, thank you. So I believe that concludes, and that is the time we have for today's discussion. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope to see you in 2 weeks.